Okay, the St George-Illawarra Dragons have signed Clint Gutherson to a 3-year contract. It's going to be so odd next season seeing Clint Gutherson wearing the red V rather than the Parramatta blue and gold. It really is going to be so strange seeing him playing for the Dragons rather than the Eels. But he was granted release from the Eels. He was allowed to explore his options. The Parramatta Eels decided to move in a different direction. There's been a major clear out at the Eels. They're going through a rebuild, and the Dragons are also going through their rebuild with Shane Flanagan as the head coach. This season just gone performed a lot better than was expected or people predicted. When Shane Flanagan was named as the new head coach to start this season, there were those saying, that they're still going to struggle, they're still going to be in the bottom 2 or bottom 3, potentially wooden spoonists. They ended up just outside the top 8. Some inconsistent form, I think, did for them, but they had some good wins in last season, and they were far more competitive, and you could definitely see the style of play that the club had. Now, obviously, Ben Hunt has been granted an immediate release, so that was an ongoing saga with Ben Hunt, whether he would stay or go, and whether he would see out his contract. He's now available for clubs to sign. So, Clint Gutherson, Ben Hunt's gone. Does Clint Gutherson convert to a half and partner Carl Flanagan? That's going to be interesting, considering most of his time at the Eels was as a fullback. Now, he has also spent some time on the wing and some time in the centres. And as the season wore on, Clint Gutherson was starting to have some injuries, some knee problems. And there was talk about moving him for next season, should he have stayed in Eel, into the halves, potentially into the centres, and out of the fullback role that he's nailed down at the Eels for so long. But they've got Sloan as at fullback, they've got some wing options, and they've got some centre options as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see where they slot Clint Gutherson into this lineup. Because they've lost Ben Hunt, because they've lost Zach Lomax. Ironically, Zach Lomax is going to the Eels. Gutherson's obviously joined the Dragons. It's going to be interesting to see what Shane Flanagan sees as Gutherson's role. Obviously, his experience and his hunger and desire is going to be, key. Will he be made one of the leadership group by Shane Flanagan? That's going to be interesting, considering again Ben Hunt has now left the club. I can see a lot of the younger players, obviously, Gutherson being used for that experience to help guide them around a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if he does transition from the fullback role into the halves or back into the centres. That would not surprise me in the slightest. Carl Flanagan had a resurgent season last year, considering he's had a few awkward seasons since leaving the Roosters. He's had his struggles, and I think being coached by his father has helped him. Carl Flanagan did have some really good games. Great, much more creative than he has been in previous seasons. A lot of try assists. Could adding Gutherson to that combination, could that actually work with a senior player like Gutherson alongside Carl Flanagan, who himself is no rookie at this point? He's a reasonably experienced half. That could be interesting, but it's going to impact how the style of play the team plays. It's going to be interesting to see what Gutherson does over the next 3 years. However, injuries are starting to become a concern, so I don't see Clint Gutherson playing every game. I can see potentially the fullback role being nailed by Sloan. I could potentially see Gutherson most likely playing in the centres. I think could potentially be where he ends up. It's going to be interesting to see how they fit him in the side, and also how the Dragons as a whole, as a team, perform considering some of the players that have left the club this off-season. Lomax and Hunt are the two real big exits from the club. It's going to be interesting to see how the team responds, where they finish this coming season, and also the young players coming through and how they develop with some senior figures leaving the club. And of course, it'd be the second season with Shane Flanagan as head coach. But you look at Flanagan's track record as an assistant and a head coach. Generally, teams that he goes in to coach improve from where they were before. So his first season, they finished just outside the top 8. Could they be an outside chance for the top 8? Clint Gutherson, what impact will he have? What position will he end up playing? Will he be the fullback? Will he be the starting fullback? Will he be a starting centre? Will he end up in the halves? That's open for interpretation. Could he potentially be a ball-playing lock? There are options that, you know, the Dragons, with Gutherson, he gives a bit more flexibility than Ben Hunt, potentially, as a player. But we shall see. So there we go. We'll focus on the Eels later on in the off-season because they've still obviously got signings to make. And where Ben Hunt ends up, we'll look at where he signs because that's going to be really interesting, the club he signs for, because that could give us a hint on further player movement. We also know the Dragons have been linked with Brodie Croft. So he could make a return to the NRL, which could then sort of sum up where Gutherson plays. If Brodie Croft gets signed by the Dragons, there's your halves partner for Carl Flanagan, which would then mean Gutherson's either a fullback or a centre for the Dragons going forward. So we shall see. But there we go. Thank you very much for watching. Place your thought on the Dragons signing Gutherson to a 3-year contract. Is this a good move or is this too long a contract considering Gutherson's recent injury problems mounting? But there we go. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll have some more content for you guys very, very soon.